In 2009, just before Christmas, Brittany Murphy was found dead in her LA home. At first it seemed like an overdose, but then the tragedy and mystery suddenly deepened. When she was a child, Brittany's father moved the family from Atlanta, Georgia to New Jersey, so that he could be closer to his children from a previous marriage, putting them on a collision course with his shady past. Her father, Angelo Bertolotti, a World War II veteran, was now once again in close proximity with his mob connections. Her mother, Sharon Murphy, ultimately decided to take her daughter out of the dangerous situation and sought a divorce. Young Brittany grew up with very little contact with her father. Brittany Murphy was determined to be a star. In fact, she made a prediction about it when she was just 5. While at a restaurant, she and her mother spotted Hollywood legends Burt Reynolds and George Segal. Brittany marched right up to their table, introduced herself and told them that one day she'd be a star too. In 1991, when she was 13, Brittany asked her mother if they could move to Hollywood so that she could pursue her career. Sharon really believed in her daughter, and so they moved to LA. In order to distance herself from her father's shady dealings, Brittany took her mother's maiden name as her stage name. Her mother's name was Brittany Murphy and Brittany's father's name was Angelo Bertolotti. Right away she began to win small roles on TV, but it wasn't easy. It would be 4 long years until producers cast her in the role that would become her breakthrough. Getting the part in Clueless was a triumph, but filming wasn't without challenges. She was just 17 when she got the part of Ty in the classic teen comedy, which meant that her mother had to be on set with her during filming. Sharon was a pillar of support for Brittany, which made what happened next even more devastating. In 1995, doctors diagnosed Sharon Murphy with breast cancer. Brittany spent time in the hospital and supported her mom through treatment, just as her mother had always done for her. Between the hospital and the film set, Murphy had almost no downtime. According to director Amy Heckerling, Brittany handled it all like a pro, but sadly it wouldn't be the only time that factors beyond her control nearly derailed her career. One of Murphy's most enduring roles is one that many may not necessarily associate with her, that of Luann Platter on King of the Hill. She appeared opposite 2 Hollywood heavyweights, Angelina Jolie and Winona Ryder, in 1999's Girl Interrupted, but she managed to hold her own and her performance impressed critics. She entered the next decade ready to conquer Hollywood, but like so many starlets before her, it would do its best to chew her up and spit her out. She began the 2000s full of hope, but soon began to encounter disappointing setbacks. Some of her movies were hits, others were misses, and one was so risque that it never even made it to theaters. Murphy played the lead in Cherry Falls, a slasher film where the villain targets teenage virgins. The film culminates in a scene where the local students participate in group intimacy. The content of the scene shocked the studio so much that it reneged on plans for a theatrical release. In 2003, doctors delivered a hammer blow to the Murphy family. Sharon's breast cancer was back with a vengeance and she would need serious surgery. Again, Brittany put her career completely on hold to care for her mother, who she often called her best friend and soulmate. Thankfully, Sharon recovered from this heartbreaking setback. Brittany's career might have been hit or miss during this period, but there was one major critic who always stood behind her. Roger Ebert often went out of his way to praise her performances in otherwise middling movies, like 2001's Don't Say a Word. He was so convinced that she was a comedic genius that he even compared her to Lucille Ball. Brittany really needed a win at this point. Luckily, she got one when producers cast her in 8 Mile, the drama film loosely based on the life of rapper Eminem. She played his love interest on and off camera. After the film came out, she hinted that the pair had become romantically involved while making the movie. The film was a huge success and Brittany garnered a lot of positive attention for her performance. Her increasing fame came with a dark side. Tabloid scrutiny intensified and many began to comment on her appearance, attributing her svelte figure to anorexia or substance abuse. She denied the gossip, but rumors continued to haunt her throughout the years. In her next film, Just Married, she starred opposite Ashton Kutcher. Once again, life imitated art and the pair began a relationship. After dating for 7 months, they broke up, with friends reporting that Kutcher wanted to return to his bachelor lifestyle. After the split, Brittany jumped from disastrous relationship to disastrous relationship. In 2003, she began dating her manager, Jeff Kwatinetz. He proposed in January 2004, but they broke up 4 months later. In 2005, There was an engagement to production assistant Joe Macaluso that lasted 8 months. Roger Ebert may have had her back, but other critics weren't so nice. Stephen Holden of the New York Times once wrote that she suggests a dumbed-down Meg Ryan with a gloss of Melanie Griffith. The combination of criticism and tabloid scrutiny on her personal life ended up getting the best of Brittany, and her friends reported that she suffered from brutally low self-esteem. Things seemed to change when she fell for British writer and director Simon Monjack. In 2006, she had read his script for an upcoming film and contacted him to pass on her compliments. Monjack, then freshly divorced from his wife, took an interest in Brittany, and before long they were dating. Monjack seemed to be the opposite of the men that Murphy had been involved with before. He was serious, well-educated, and wealthy. Or at least he presented himself that way. A quick look into Monjack's past revealed a disturbing dark side. Wherever he went, he left behind a string of bad checks, scorned ex-girlfriends, unpaid bills, and outraged collaborators. Before he met Brittany, Monjack had once had a warrant out for credit card fraud, and he'd also lost a lawsuit after being evicted from 4 different homes. On top of that, he owed his ex-wife months' worth of rent. It wasn't long before Brittany was drawn into his web of lies. She defended his name to those in the business that he'd deceived, and once even paid off someone who was suing him to the tune of $10,000. No matter what people told her about him, she stood by his side, and soon she'd be in too deep to ever get out. In their first few months together, they were inseparable. There was just one problem. He wasn't supposed to be in the U.S. In February of 2007, authorities detained him after they found out he was in the country on an expired visa. Brittany had been through 2 very public engagements and 2 very public breakups, and she'd learned her lesson. This time, Murphy and Monjack made one announcement, telling the world that they'd secretly married in May of 2007. It should have been a joyous time, but as her friends later reflected, it had been the start of a strange new chapter. Monjack was becoming strangely paranoid. He insisted that some mysterious force had them under surveillance, and that someone had bugged their phone. As time wore on, this paranoia only increased, serving to separate the couple from friends and family. Everyone except Brittany's mother, Sharon, who lived with them. Perhaps due to Monjack's erratic behavior and bad reputation, Brittany's career floundered. According to Brittany and her family, there was an ironic twist in the tabloid's allegations of substance misuse. She claimed that she had a heart murmur and avoided illicit substances at all costs. She said that her only vice was an occasional glass of champagne. In 2003, Brittany had purchased a fully furnished home in the Hollywood Hills from Britney Spears. As the years wore on, she grew to dislike the house. Every time they'd be on their way home from a job or a Hollywood function, she would ask to stay at the Beverly Hills Hotel instead, but Monjack would refuse. As it eventually turned out, she had good reason to feel averse to the place. In 2009, Brittany formulated a plan to save her ailing career. She wanted to leave behind her house and move to New York City. There, Monjack would find more work as a screenwriter, and she could begin to appear in indie films that would help her build some artistic cred. Sadly, the plan would never come to pass. On top of that, your support helps keep the channel going. Click the link in the description for more details. In late 2009, she flew to Puerto Rico with Monjack and her mother by her side as always, to work on a film named The Caller. On day 1 of filming, producers wanted to ban Monjack from the set. Everyone involved has contested what happened next. One thing is for sure, Brittany never made it past that first day. She either quit or producers fired her, while an official announcement called it a mutual decision. Murphy and her entourage of 2 decided to stay in Puerto Rico for another week and enjoy the sun and sand. They didn't know that it would be a fatal mistake. Both Brittany's mom and Monjack came down with colds. Then on the flight home, Monjack suffered a medical emergency that necessitated CPR, which Brittany herself performed. Between losing her role and what happened on the plane, the tabloids went wild. Brittany caught the same cold, but it hit her much worse. The actress took a daily cocktail of prescriptions for various ailments, and was taking a number of medications to combat the flu-like symptoms she was battling. On the night of December 19, 2009, she struggled to breathe, yet refused to call a doctor, thinking of the negative attention she'd received after Monjack's episode on the plane. It was a Saturday night and she finally gave in and made an appointment for Monday. Sadly, she'd never get to see her doctor. In the early hours of December 20, 2009, The power went out in Brittany's home, and their backup generator failed. Brittany called out for her mother, making a heartbreaking plea. He said, "Mom, I'm dying, I love you. Mom, I'm dying, I love you." She knew she was dying. This is a better hour before, but... No, baby, this was... You've forgotten time. Paramedics brought the actress to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, where she went into cardiac arrest and died, 2 hours after the initial 911 call. She was just 32 years old. The next day, the coroner performed an autopsy. 2 months later, they revealed the results, citing pneumonia as the primary cause, with anemia and the combination of medications she'd been taking as the secondary causes. Her death sent shockwaves throughout Hollywood, and condolences poured in from friends and collaborators. The coroner released the autopsy report, and it seemed like that was the end. But it was then that the tragedy and mystery deepened. 5 months after Brittany's death, her husband, Simon Monjack, died in the same bedroom. His cause of death was also listed as pneumonia and anemia. After the loss of both Brittany Murphy and Simon Monjack, Brittany's mother, Sharon, was determined to get to the bottom of the real cause of their deaths. She came forward with a disturbing claim. She said that both her daughter and son-in-law died due to a presence of toxic mold in their house. The house that Brittany had hated so much. Then Brittany's father came out of the woodwork and made some shocking allegations of his own. He acquired some of Brittany's hair for a toxicology test. The results convinced him that someone had poisoned his daughter and son-in-law, and his suspicions fell on one person, his ex-wife, Sharon Murphy. The tabloids went wild, covering the public feud between Brittany Murphy's parents, but what many people missed was the couple's bizarre connection to an alleged government cover-up. Monjack had been particularly paranoid about surveillance. If this story is true, he may have had good reason. In 2004, former Department of Homeland Security officer Julia Davis turned whistleblower after she noticed an unusual influx of people entering the U.S. on July 4 from so-called terrorist countries, some of whom were already on watch lists. After having her concerns dismissed, she escalated her report to the FBI. Julia Davis claims that she was close friends with Brittany Murphy, and that Murphy even testified on her behalf during Davis's litigation against the government. She says that as a result, the DHS put Murphy and Monjack on a watch list, and that they targeted Monjack, who was British, for deportation. Davis produced a documentary about her experiences titled Top Priority: The Terror Within in 2012. In it, she claims that Simon Monjack suspected the government was monitoring him and his wife, and that agents had bugged their phones. A few days after Monjack made his suspicions public, Brittany was dead. In January 2019, 9 years after Murphy's death, her father died at the age of 92. His son, Brittany's half-brother, has continued his quest for the truth about her death, keeping her name in the news for more than a decade afterwards. With all the competing stories and third parties, it's unlikely that we'll ever know what really happened to Brittany Murphy. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more incredible stories. Your support means everything to us.